A Dutch expedition cruise ship left the southern tip of Argentina carrying travelers chasing glaciers, remote islands, and one of the last untouched corners of Earth. But somewhere between Patagonia and the Atlantic Ocean, something invisible started spreading quietly through the cabins. At first, passengers thought it was food poisoning, a little fever, nausea, headaches. Some people couldn't even finish dinner. Then suddenly, people began collapsing with severe breathing problems. 3 passengers would eventually die. And now one terrifying word is dominating headlines across Europe, South America, and global health agencies: Hantavirus. And here's the part making people panic online right now. Some doctors believe this may involve the Andes strain, the only known hantavirus on Earth that has ever shown evidence of spreading from one person to another. So tonight, I want to sit down with you calmly, no panic, no sensational nonsense, and explain exactly what we know so far about the MV Hondius outbreak, why health officials are taking this incredibly seriously, and most importantly, the one mistake travelers make that can expose them. Stay with me until the end, because the final rule I'm going to give you could genuinely save your life if you plan to travel this year. The ship at the center of the story is called the MV Hondius, a Dutch-flagged polar expedition cruise operated for adventure tourism. The voyage began in Ushuaia, Argentina, often called the end of the world, on April 1st. On board were 149 people. This was an expedition through Antarctica and remote regions where human civilization almost disappears. That matters a lot, because unlike viruses that circulate in crowded cities, hantavirus lives in wild ecosystems, silent ecosystems. And what shocked health investigators was how strange the first symptoms looked. People didn't initially present with a classic respiratory infection. Many developed fever, exhaustion, vomiting, and severe body aches. Some passengers reportedly thought they had picked up a stomach bug, but then the illness escalated fast, terrifyingly fast. Within days, some patients developed severe pneumonia-like symptoms. Their lungs started filling with fluid. Oxygen levels crashed. Emergency evacuations began. One elderly Dutch passenger died aboard the ship. His wife later died in a South African hospital after hantavirus was confirmed. Another passenger died later during the voyage, and several more cases remain under investigation. Now here's where the story becomes genuinely unsettling. One confirmed passenger reportedly returned to Europe before testing positive. That means this outbreak didn't stay isolated at sea. The trail crossed continents, and naturally, millions of people started asking the same question all over social media. Is this another COVID situation? The short answer right now is no. And understanding why is the difference between intelligent caution and blind fear. Hantavirus is not one single virus. It's an entire family of viruses carried primarily by rodents. Different strains exist worldwide. The most dangerous strains in the Americas can trigger hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, a disease so aggressive it kills in hours. But here's the critical detail. This virus does not naturally live in airports or shopping malls. It lives in wild rodents in rural environments. Most infections happen after someone inhales microscopic particles contaminated with rodent urine or droppings. You don't even need to touch an animal. Imagine sweeping an old cabin. Invisible viral particles suddenly become airborne. That's the real danger. Invisible dust. Was it a contaminated environment, or did at least some infections spread person to person? That distinction matters enormously. Most hantaviruses do not spread efficiently between humans, but the Andes strain, found mainly in southern Argentina and Chile, is the rare exception. Scientific literature over the past 2 decades has documented clusters where close household contacts became infected after prolonged exposure. Notice the key phrase there: prolonged exposure. Not walking past someone at a supermarket, not sitting 3 rows away on an airplane, not touching a doorknob for 2 seconds. The documented cases generally involve couples sharing beds or caregivers spending days beside patients. In other words, intense, prolonged contact. And that's exactly why a ship like the MV Hondius creates such unusual concern. Small cabins, shared dining spaces, limited ventilation, weeks together at sea, continuous close interaction. It's the perfect laboratory for investigators trying to determine whether transmission occurred inside the ship itself. And honestly, that's one reason this story exploded globally, because the setting feels cinematic. A remote expedition vessel, mysterious illness, quarantines, deaths at sea, international passengers trapped aboard while health agencies monitor the situation. It sounds like a movie, but unfortunately, this is very real for the families involved. Now let me explain something crucial. The timeline of this virus is deceptive, extremely deceptive. The incubation period for Hantavirus can be long, often 2 to 4 weeks, in some rare cases, even longer. That means a person can return home from Patagonia feeling completely normal, and then suddenly develop severe symptoms weeks later. By that point, neither the patient nor the doctor immediately connects the illness to a trip taken a month ago, and that delay can become deadly. Because early symptoms are incredibly misleading. The first phase often feels like an unusually brutal flu. High fever, crushing fatigue, muscle pain so severe patients describe feeling hit by a truck, headaches, chills, nausea, vomiting. Nothing about it screams, rare virus. Then suddenly the second phase arrives, and this is where the disease becomes terrifying. Tiny blood vessels inside the lungs begin leaking fluid. Imagine trying to breathe underwater while your lungs slowly fill from the inside. Patients rapidly become short of breath. Oxygen drops. The heart struggles. Some require intensive care or mechanical ventilation within hours. Fast, brutal, unforgiving. And unfortunately, severe cases carry a very high fatality rate. Some studies estimate mortality rates between 30% and 40%. That's why early recognition matters so much. Not panic, recognition. Now I want to pause because I'm curious where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below because it's fascinating seeing how global these conversations become. And tell me honestly, had you heard of this? Many older viewers remember hearing about mysterious rodent-related outbreaks decades ago. And that's true. Hantavirus isn't new. It's just usually rare and geographically limited. That's why most people never think about it, until an international outbreak pushes it into headlines. Now let's talk about the single biggest mistake travelers make. This part could genuinely protect someone you love. The greatest danger is not seeing a rodent. The greatest danger is disturbing contaminated dust in enclosed rural spaces. Cabins, sheds, storage rooms, barns, abandoned buildings, rural vacation homes closed for months. Health authorities warn people not to enter these environments carelessly, yet travelers do it constantly. They arrive, start sweeping floors or shaking blankets without ventilation. That's exactly how exposure happens. So here are the 3 rules. First, never rush directly into a long-closed rural building in high-risk areas. Second, open all windows and doors first for at least 30 minutes. Third, never sweep dry dust, ever. Instead, wet surfaces first using disinfectant or diluted bleach solution before wiping down with protection. That one habit change matters enormously, because sweeping dry dust launches contaminated particles directly into the air you breathe. And here's something many people misunderstand. You can't always tell which areas are risky just by looking. Some cabins appear spotless. Some rodent contamination is microscopic. That's why awareness matters more than fear. Smart caution beats panic every single time. Now let's address another question flooding comment sections. Should people in Europe or North America be worried right now? Based on everything health authorities have stated, the risk to the general population remains low. Very low. And there are several reasons for that. First, hantavirus requires specific conditions. Second, casual person-to-person spread has never been observed with most strains. Third, Global health agencies already activated contact tracing and protocols. That doesn't mean authorities are ignoring the situation. Quite the opposite. The reason governments respond aggressively is precisely because they want to prevent uncertainty from becoming a larger problem later. Rapid isolation and investigation are how outbreaks stay small. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.